Good evening and a warm welcome. This is the Rush Hour. I'm Vikram Oza here on ET Now, walking you through the rush of news that we are tracking at the top of our evening primetime programming this Monday, the 26th of June, from our Mumbai studios. And up first, we talk about the volatility in crude oil prices emanating from the political instability in Russia. Russia's Prime Minister has said that the country must rally behind President Putin. That statement coming a weekend after we've seen Putin's authority getting challenged by the mercenary group Wagner. Moscow trying very hard now to project unity, even as Western countries are saying that there are cracks in Kremlin that are clearly visible. Earlier today, the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu was shown interacting with troops on state television. We're going to deep dive into this issue, what the short-lived Wagner mutiny actually means for Russia and the world at large. That discussion coming up on India Development Debate at 9 o'clock tonight here on ET Now. But let's understand the impact of all this on crude oil prices, and for that, Viktor Katona, lead crude analyst at Kpler, is joining us. Victor, great to have you with us on this edition of the Rush Hour here on ET Now. Do tell us, as far as the week gone by is concerned, we've seen that mutiny. It was a lot of volatility as far as Russia is concerned, and some of that, of course, is going to reflect in crude oil prices, considering that Russia is the second largest exporter of oil in the world. Do tell us how you've seen it play out on crude oil prices.
Confusion reigns supreme in the world of crude oil markets. So we're no longer having the issue of do we have actually Chinese demand growing, or what's the situation in China? We also have a supply story with Russia, which previously was very much unthinkable. One might even wonder if it was a sheer coincidence that the entire mutiny took place on a Saturday and ended the same day, because the overall impact on the oil markets has been relatively muted. By now, the mutiny seems to be gone. Everyone went home. There are no road blockages, etc. Yet at the same time, the confusion remains. So I would say that the main impact of the entire story was that the upside to oil prices, which was previously there, now also has a Russia supply disruption in the books, which it didn't really have before because no one really anticipated this happening, let's say a week or 2 weeks ago. So in the grand scheme of things, we're still at the same level in terms of Brent or WTI prices that we were last week. But now we're even more confused than we were. And trust me, it was a very confused outlook overall still. So yeah, not good for oil markets, very untransparent, just too many moving objects. And it's very difficult to understand what is going on and where are we all headed in general.
Indeed. So there is confusion, and that reigns supreme. And with that, we can expect a certain amount of volatility in crude oil prices. So what is the range that you see crude oil in, as confused a state as we may be in right now? What are you working with?
Well, I think that crude oil is still in for a little upside. Right now, we have Brent roughly around 75. I think catching 80 over the upcoming month is still possible. Triple digits are largely out of the picture. I think that as we move into September, October, the upside to oil prices, if anyone expects 90 by the end of the year, very unlikely. We have a mild recession in the US, most probably Europe headed into a recession too. And if the market has been paying attention to the Chinese data, the most recent ones being published by the Chinese authorities, are by any means not positive. We have the Dragon Boat Festival mobility levels being lower than everyone anticipated. So basically, Chinese mobility is lower, home sales lower, construction activity lower, car sales is lower. So in general, a lot of the pent-up demand that people were assuming that will take place in China has not happened. So I would say 75 to 80 is the range that we are talking about, and especially in the upcoming weeks, and Q4, meaning October to December, expect a lot of weakness coming from the recession.
And do you see any kind of clarity emerge on supply side concerns when it comes to crude oil?
Well, we have a lot of open questions which are still not necessarily reflected in oil prices. Iran has been one of the biggest one of all, because as everyone, we were talking about, the oil markets, the Russia's reshuffling of flows from Europe into Asia, the Middle East, etc. No one was really paying attention to Iran, and suddenly Iran exports 1.5 million barrels per day of oil to China. It's triple what it did 2 years ago. So, you know, the ramp up in Iran is quite significant. So we actually might end up in a situation where when we have more supply than everyone anticipated. And that's really the big downside. Everyone expects demand to be weak as we move into the upcoming months because everyone expects demand destruction from the recession. But suddenly we might see supply coming in from new sources, and Iran and potentially Venezuela are key to those, that we didn't really anticipate. And that's going to be a really, really interesting interplay between supply and demand in the second half of 2023.
A lot of moving pieces. Viktor Katona, appreciate you joining us, lead market analyst at Kpler. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Rush Hour. Cheers.